This ain't your typical video essay. I wouldn't even qualify this as a video essay because some of the research is happening live as I record this. I do have 3 central points I want to hit though, as well as just a general overview to help guide the conversation here. But think of this as us having a nice little chat and I'm yapping to you about something I care about right now and I think is interesting enough to explore further. What are we talking about? Sabrina Carpenter's new album, Man's Best Friend. Ooh, there's a lot of conversation surrounding this album. Ooh, why is that? Part 1, contextual climate. The album's name and cover controversy, the build-up to release, and the context surrounding all of the above. Let me start by saying that I love Sabrina's music. I'll say it. I love it. I can't deny a bop when it bops, and there are a few songs I really like in this album. I was so excited for this album actually that to the point where I pre-saved it on Spotify. I don't ever do that really, but I was excited and curious because of all the controversy surrounding the cover and the name of the album. Short and Sweet, which is her previous hit album, really was given hot girl summer, okay? But it was also very girly pop. It wasn't just dance music, it was kind of romantic in a way, tragically romantic. Then cut to her announcing her next album, Man's Best Friend, in June. The conversation surrounding Sabrina's next drop turned from hype to confusion, worry, fear. Let me start off by saying this. Everyone who's criticizing Sabrina for being too sexual, nah, cut the cameras. Get out of here with that. Adults should be allowed to be just as sexual as they'd like, especially when pinned up against these male artists these days, talking about all the kinds of stuff they want to do to a woman and all the kinds of stuff they'd like a woman to do to them. If that's cool, this is cool, okay? Sabrina is a grown woman, an adult, and if explicit music just isn't for you, then say that and move on, okay? Skedaddle. She isn't too sexual, she just has some sexual themes in her music, and that's that. That's not this conversation. July 11th, that's when Sabrina dropped both the title and the official visual for the album, Man's Best Friends. Reactions, they were mixed, to say the least. I mean, kind of makes sense, it's pretty provocative, everything about the title and the visual. What do you think of when someone says man's best friend? I'll give you a moment. A dog. Yes, that's right, a dog. And then you have a cover with Sabrina on her knees, well, actually all fours, next to a man. Her hair is being held up like a leash, and hello? Of course it's going to cause a commotion. It is inherently provocative. Glasgow Women's Aid, which supports women, children, and young people experiencing domestic abuse, shared the following statement in response to the cover. Picturing herself on all fours with a man pulling her hair and calling it man's best friend isn't subversion. It's a throwback to tired tropes that reduce women to pets, props, and possessions and promote an element of violence and control. I don't entirely disagree with that, which is why when the cover and the title first dropped, I was like, what are we doing here? Now the visuals are cool, I'm not gonna lie, she looks great in that photo, but it's provocative. It definitely had me like, what? Some people defended the title and art as satire, very tongue-in-cheek, something of a visual reclamation of sexual power, but let's be for real. Obviously this is where personal opinion seeps in, but I was instantly like, oh girl. My thought process aligned more with Glasgow's because the cover wasn't just sexual, it was degrading in nature, especially in today's climate. Just specifically now, we're seeing the rise of conservatism and at a rapid rate, as well as just general misogyny, reintroducing traditional ideas and standards for women that would even go as far as stripping away our oh so recently acquired rights. It just feels kind of tone deaf, at least at the surface level, right? So when she released alternative covers, my immediate thought was, why not those? These are just as great visually, but they don't provoke this narrative of women being dogs, being property of men. Well, I think the answer is a simple one. This is more of a conversation starter, ain't it? Nearly everyone on my corner of the internet was talking about this scandal, if you could call it that, but like many others who criticized the cover, I said, let her cook. Let my girl Sabrina cook. Maybe this is a beautiful gateway into some really powerful, really boppy satirical music. Maybe this is a good old bait and switch where at a surface level, judging by the album art alone, people might expect to get a whole album about catering to the male gaze and men this, men that. No, maybe we'll get something that will completely contradict the visuals of the album, therefore making the cover satirical. Well, we'll get back to that in a second. Unrelated and kind of related, I'm going to bring up this artist named Jessie Murph now. Never really heard of her, didn't really listen to her music until this song dropped in July called 1956. The lyrics of the song instantly went viral, and I'm gonna read some of them to you and you're probably gonna understand why. Most notably the lines, "I think I'd give up a few rights if you would just love me like it's 1965. And I might get a little slap, but you wouldn't hit me on Snapchat." Lyricism. Yeah. Her response to the backlash surrounding these lyrics, and I quote,
"This entire song is satire. Are y'all stupid?"
And,
"On the record, I love rights." I love rights. Specifically for women, like, what the freak?
what is that statement? I love rights. Really well thought out response. No sort of breakdown or explanation on how the song is satirical or what exactly about the song criticized abusive relationships outside of just its general shock factor. Let's really define what satire is, shall we? Satire is the use of humor, irony, and exaggeration to criticize and expose the foolishness, vices, or corruption of individuals, organizations, or society as a whole. Its purpose is to not only entertain, but also to provoke thought and inspire change by holding its subject up to ridicule. By this definition, you are inviting people to tear up your work. You are inviting people to feel provoked enough to criticize, at the very least, the subject matter of the song, so it doesn't really make sense that her response to criticism was,
"Are you stupid?"
If this really was satire, that is the precise response you want. Or if we're going with praise as the desired outcome, it should be praise wrapped in introspective thought. So, all this is to say, let's keep this in mind while we move forward to the next portion of our discussion here, which is part 2, Man's Best Flop, the full album drop, music video releases, and public's perception. Okay, so the album definitely wasn't a flop. Made you look. It's actually doing super well, which I don't know if that's really surprising. A lot of fans were looking forward to the release, and the controversy surrounding the cover, I think, really helped with the hype by, if nothing else, sparking curiosity in folks like myself. That's one of the reasons I pre-saved the album, not just because I was excited for the album, but also I wanted to hear what was gonna be in it to kind of contradict the visuals of the cover. And you know what just occurred to me? There is no song in the album titled Man's Best Friend. So that's kind of interesting why she titled it that. It's like is that her attempt at a general synopsis of the album? This just occurred to me. This is not in the script, so. Even her latest music video published alongside the album, Tears, at the time of me prepping this, is at 25 million views, and I think that's a pretty good performing music video for being released less than a week ago, okay? By the way, I could probably do a whole other video about Tears as a song. It's basically a song hyping up men about doing the bare minimum. And listen, it's cute and quirky, okay? It's cute and quirky, and it's in fact a bop. And I don't think Tears is going to completely dismantle feminism. Listen, I just think there's something to be said about it, okay? When paired with the album's cover and this narrative that took off, that this is going to subvert expectations. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. What I will say though, is that the music video itself is kind of satirical. I'm not going to play any clips here because I'm afraid of getting claimed. But towards the end, we see the male love interest die, which is a common theme in Sabrina's videos. So something of note, I guess, is I feel Sabrina and her team are trying to really cater to this narrative of the album being satirical through the visuals of the music videos. Different from the visual of the album cover. I feel like a more impactful album cover would have been her walking a man. Would it that not? It's a super simple serve, and she just decided not to. I don't know why. Okay, moving on. When the album finally dropped on August 29th, the reactions were also mixed yet again. Listen, I won't sit here and lie and say the songs aren't catchy. They are. I first listened through it during a workout in the gym, And I had a good time, okay? But like many others, I couldn't help but think, well, this certainly doesn't beat the allegations, huh? The allegations being the cover's degrading, the album itself will be degrading. And while, I won't go too in depth on each song individually, at least not for this video, but I will briefly summarize the journey we're taking on from track 1 to 12 to kind of paint a picture for you about what is even featured in this album. Man-Child is a song you've definitely heard, either willfully or against your will. It's a song about condemning an immature ex. Okay, pretty straightforward. Tears, the second track, is once again a song about calling the bare minimum sexy. My Man on Willpower seems to be a song about a guy obsessed with self-restraint to the point where he emotionally cuts her off and won't give her any affection. Sugar Talking is about putting your money where your mouth is, so not just talking about being a good partner, but actually being a good partner. We Almost Broke Up Last Night, in the title, about being in a stormy relationship, on again, off again type beat. Nobody's Son is, yet again, about a man, and how she's gone a bit black-pilled and doesn't think anyone's son is worthy. Never Getting Laid is, once again, yeah, you know where this is going, wishing her ex a horrible life. When Did You Get Hot? We're talking about an ex again. And this one is actually one of my faves on the album when it comes to overall sound. Go-Go Juice is about drunk dialing exes. Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry explores power dynamics in relationships. House Tour is one big play on words about wee-woo. Goodbye, which is the final track, is about wishing a relationship goodbye. In a not really loving way, but more like sassy. Just from the synopsis line, what have we gathered? It's very male-focused, huh? That in itself, I don't think is inherently bad, okay? I don't think that in itself is bad. I think everyone to some degree was expecting a relationship-centered theme for this album. I believe, at least from my point of view, where the colder reception is coming from is that people were expecting more of a complete 180 from the visual messaging of the cover. And this really wasn't that. Some fans remarked, if the album is an excellent exploration of female sexual liberation and how men treat women like dogs, then the cover works amazingly. If it falls short of that, I think it gets a lot harder to defend this album in any other way than to let Sabrina do what she wants. We already heard Sabrina's defense of,
y'all need to get out more,
which is crazy, coming from someone who, let's be honest, is super detached from the real world when it comes to what it's like being an everyday, regular, run-of-the-mill person, okay? She was also quoted saying, for me, this whole album was about the humanity of allowing yourself to make those mistakes, knowing when you're putting yourself in a situation that will probably end poorly, but it's going to teach you something, so there was a lot of different meanings. This is such a non-answer to the criticism. Maybe we need like a wired sit down where she breaks down all of her songs so we can really get it. She also stated they hadn't heard the project in response to people criticizing the album before it came out simply for its visuals and title. They don't know me, they don't know my intentions. Girl, what are your intentions? People criticize the cover and title for being degrading, and then her songs on the album are about praising men for doing the bare minimum, rewarding the bare minimum with sex, focusing the conversation not only around men, but men that she's broken up with. It isn't really giving female empowerment, it's giving sexualized lover girl. And in this day and age where misogyny is becoming the norm, listen, a woman should be allowed to be whatever she wants, whenever she wants. All I'm saying is, I understand, much like the feedback to Jessie's song, the fear that's promoting the pushback. I'll let this TikTok creator speak more on this. I think she put it best, actually, better than I probably could.
Sabrina can't have it both ways. If it's a satire of how men treat us, it can't also be a straightforward image of a woman being submissive just because it's sexy.
Right.
When you heard that or read that, what did you think?
There's just a lot of pointing fingers for, at that point they hadn't heard the project. They don't know me, they don't know my intentions, they don't know the stories I'm telling. So I try to take it with a grain of salt and also know that like my fans that know me and know the person behind the music will look at that photo and they know exactly what it is. And people that have no idea who I am, absolutely look at that photo and go like, where are my parents?
Yes. Yeah,
my parents actually saw the photo and they loved it.
Let me tell you what's actually going on outside, in the real world, Sabrina, outside of your Hollywood little sphere. In the real world, we have politicians taking us back to the 1950s, actually pre-1950s. If they could have it their way, it would be the 1860s right now, and I wouldn't be allowed to speak. You wouldn't be allowed to do half the shit that you're doing either. In this real world that you speak of, that you want us to go out and explore, women are facing politicians that are actively advocating to take away our right to vote. They've already repealed Roe v. Wade. They're coming after birth control next. They're using women as incubators in their death. And you're talking about we need to go outside. I think you're the one who needs to touch grass and come in contact with reality. Then you use your 50s, 60s aesthetic to pull out an image that looks just like the ads that were telling women to know their place and be treated like dogs back in the exact same era that you're cosplaying as. But we're too sensitive for being upset about it. We need to go outside. Now that we've gotten that straightened out, clearly you live under a rock since you, your team, and everyone around you saw that image attached to the title Man's Best Friend and thought nothing of it.
Part 3, I have something to say, which is my personal take on the album, its reception, and if it's really that serious. Short and Sweet seemed to push more of this woman's empowerment message than what her fan base was amping up or hoping Man's Best Friend was going to be. Man's Best Friend seems to be more centered around male attention, validation, and yearning over self-confidence, embracing one's sexuality. There is some of that in Man's Best Friend for sure. But considering the controversy surrounding the title and cover, it feels like it's trying to be poetic and edgy and satirical without really hitting the mark, at least not for me and apparently not for other people. Similar to Jessie Murph, instead of breaking down how the song or the album is satire or the intention of the music, the message is, are you dumb or you need to touch grass? But if you look at someone like Ethel Cain, for example, or Hozier, who also both have pretty graphic, or some might even say disturbing songs, there are quite complex deconstructions of their music that support this idea of it being satire or sending a message in a way I feel is a touch more effective than Sabrina or Jessie's approach to the criticism or response to their music. Instead of saying that's the point, they're upset at fans for expressing their distaste. Again, isn't that the point? And if it isn't the point, then yes, you are in fact catering to a specific crowd, one that glorifies the objectification and degradation of women. Sorry, but it's just, I think the climate right now is getting everyone a little bit up in arms, a little bit, ooh. Oh, finally, okay, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of takes surrounding albums need to have a message or albums need to be art. And I see where you all are coming from with that, okay? I do, but also know who you're consuming. I understand placing that expectation on someone like Beyonce, Tyler the Creator, Kendrick, or Hozier, but Sabrina Carpenter, no hate to Sabrina, okay? But her music really ain't that deep. I don't expect her music to be deep either. I expect her music to be fun, catchy, well composed, earwormy, all that stuff. I'm not looking for a life-changing experience with Sabrina Carpenter. I think it's okay to have music or albums that are just fun, all right? They're just fun. They don't have to have a message. They aren't trying to tell a story or whatever. They just kind of exist because it sounds fun and good, okay? The problem I have with this album is that Sabrina is really trying to act like this is art. She's really trying to push a narrative, as recently as her interview with Gayle King, that people are taking this the wrong way, and there's a deeper meaning we're all not catching. Nah, I think she's wanting to make a sexy lover girl album, and that's what she did. I really think it's as simple as that. Now, she's spinning the visuals and messaging surrounding her songs to be something different, and maybe that's a part of the grand strategy here, but I don't know. My final takeaways are, the album is fun, right? The songs are catchy, but overall, I do think it's a step down from Short and Sweet. That's just my opinion, not because of the whole controversy, but just, I think the songs are just overall better in Short and Sweet. That's not to say the songs aren't just as catchy in this album, but it does feel like just an extension of Short and Sweet. It just feels like an extension. I don't think every new album needs to sound different from the first one, but you also want to hear some new stuff. You want to get some new flavoring in there. I also think the backlash is justified, but I also think they knew, they being Sabrina and her team, exactly what they were doing with that cover. They wanted to spark conversation, and they succeeded, okay? I don't know how to feel overall about those sort of visuals being used in today's climate. It feels honestly a bit tone deaf, especially coming from someone who claims to be very pro-female empowerment. And like that one commenter mentioned, again, if the album is an excellent exploration of female sexual liberation, then sure, the cover works amazingly, and it falls short. I think it fell short. Someone could argue that maybe the album does do that by evoking emotions of distaste or disgust during a song like Tears, but then again, any criticism is met with go outside more, or instead of that's the point, or I'm glad that's a response, you know? I feel like that's a effective way to respond to the criticism would be, I'm glad you're upset. Then you have people like, what? Then you just win either way. You just win. I like love songs. I like songs about exes. I also like songs that don't involve relationships or men at all. I don't know. It does paint a bit of a picture and put you in a box as an artist if the only thing you sing about is men and your own sex appeal. You're kind of signing up for some commentary surrounding that, right? Overall, the album isn't on my no listen list or anything like that. I wouldn't put it up there with any of Kanye's work, you feel me? But I do hope that any woman or girl, or really anyone of the younger generation especially, can understand that your life is way more than your love life or your intimate partner's. Empowerment doesn't just come in the form of your sexuality, it gets way deeper than that. And in that same vein, I don't think anyone should feel bad about enjoying the album, but I do think that people who are defending it as art need to be so for real. You need to be for real. Listen, I wouldn't say it's not art, but it's definitely not. It's not art in the way that her fan base is defending it as being, okay? I think it's art in the sense that you can it evokes a certain emotion when you listen to it, and I think that in itself is worthy of being called art. I think we enter dangerous territory when we start, I don't know, saying what is and isn't art. Okay. That's all I have to say about this whole thing right now. Overall, I think we all just need to be for real. I think this was intentional. The cover, the title, and it worked. Everyone started talking about it. I'm talking about it now. People are still talking about it. I think it was a little malicious and they're trying to spin it like it wasn't. And that's kind of that. Anyways, what are your thoughts? Please, I want to hear everyone's thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please put them in the comments below, and like this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. Bye.